Thank you, Colin. So for our next couple of exciting interviews, we're going to be looking at partnerships in the humanitarian sector. So I would like to welcome to the stage our Devex President and Editor-in-Chief, Raj Kumar, and the Chobani founder and CEO, Hamdi Ulukaya. Thank you.
Okay, great to be back with all of you, and really excited to be with Hamdi, who I don't think needs much introduction for this audience in person and all of you following us online. But, you know, I know a little something about social impact organizations. I've actually written about this topic. I've studied this. I think arguably Chobani is the largest social enterprise in the world. Now, a lot of this depends on how you define a social enterprise. It's a business. You're the largest yogurt company in this country. You're the fastest growing food and beverage company in this country. So you can say, well, is that really a social enterprise? But from the start, you have had this idea of food as a force for good, and you've embedded it in the business. So I like to make that case. I think you're there.
Yeah, thank you. So good to join you. It's an honor to be with you all. I don't brag about the business, but let me tell you something. The case I'm trying to do is if you're good with humanity, if you're good with your consumer, if you're good with your people, and if you use the business for what you care and passionate about is to move humanity forward, with environment forward, that's an enormous engine for success of business.
Yeah.
So for that, to make the case, use the Chobani as an example of saying, I don't come from a business perspective. I never studied business. I am a farmer, nomad. I never went to school for business.
You were a shepherd, right?
I'm a shepherd. Yeah, I never worked anywhere. I never knew anyone who studied business. And Chobani started in the ashes of a factory that has been owned by a large corporation for 70, 80 years before, then they closed it. And I started with 4 factory workers in upstate New York in a small town. Now, when I started, I said, well, growing up, assuming that a lot of us here had a big question mark on business, I grew up hating it. So I never see myself being in business. So I have two dimensions. One is, how do I start something that I don't become someone growing up hating? The second one's, how do I operate this place is not as the same as the people who closed it after 7 years. So those are the 2 things. It's a simple thing. Today, Chobani is, close to $3 billion in sales. During the pandemic, we did not do any price other than covering the inflation, and we reduced the price actually in some of this. I've been completely against it. I think food and beverage companies has gone really mad, taking advantage of time to go above and beyond on the pricing that ordinary people got hurt. But the latest number I had is we are the 27th food and beverage company in the country, and we are #1 growth contributor. So if you think about all the food and beverage company in the country, we add more volume and dollar sales growth in retail than any other company. And I say, how is that possible? You're talking about big companies you can think of. And we don't know any other way of operating, Raj. We just don't know any other way of operating. And we have no foundation. Like Chobani has no foundation. I have a tent that's a personal.
Tent.org, you guys all should know it. I think you do.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is you are in the right path. If you're in the business world, if you meaningfully turn your organization that I want to make a change in society, one dimension to another, is one of the most powerful way of making business successful as well.
Let's talk for a second about this new product you launched. I think it's emblematic of this ethos that you have in the business, which is Super Milk. Right. And there's a lot of people in the audience who are in the humanitarian community. They know how challenging it is to find the right kind of products that you can deliver in a humanitarian setting that have the right nutrition profile, but can be shelf stable, that don't require refrigeration. What is this product that you created?
So we make yogurt. Our products are mostly refrigerated. And since from day one, we wanted to participate in any relief effort, hunger, child hunger, families with our products. And they keep coming back and say, Hamdi, It's refrigerated. Often people don't have warehouses that has refrigeration. And when you distribute food in a tough times, you know, the last thing you want is where is the refrigeration, right? It's a very fragile product. And then last year, one of my colleagues came and says, we have a really tough time meeting people nutrition needs. And I immediately, in that table with Becca, with my colleague, I said, what if we do a milk, shelf-stable milk? And we designed, and I get the scientists, everybody involved. So we concentrate the milk, which is a known technology, it's filtration. Everybody does it. We filter the milk. If you think about it, 90% of the milk is water, 88%, 90%. So if we remove the water with filtration, technical thing, we use an enzyme, which is very innovative, to convert the sugar into very high quality fiber called gus. With that, we reduce the sugar almost half, and we make it lactose free. So it became a super milk. It was like, oh, with this, you can have twice more protein, 50% less sugar, and high quality fiber, excellent source of high quality fiber. And then we use the ultra heat treatment technology to make it shelf stable through Tetra Pak. And you have yourself a food. And then we went to Red Cross. He said, what about that? And then we distribute all across the country. Now it's warehoused everywhere. And then we're going into now the food banks and all that kind of stuff. And then finally, we got so much request from everybody. We says, okay, we're going to make this available, open. We patent it, but we open it for everyone who wants to use it around the world to use it for disaster.
So if anybody's here listening who's from a humanitarian organization, if you're looking for an alternative, the patent is something you'll open up, and you're open to the idea of helping with localized manufacturing, depending on where it's relevant around the world.
Exactly. And we didn't launch this commercially. First, we launched it with Red Cross for impact first. But my point is, if we try to use what we have, sometimes doesn't fit the need of the people, right? And if you have a hunger, if you have storm, and if you need people to have access to nutrition food, our yogurt wouldn't work. So often the companies will say, well, I'm not going to use my innovative engineering or CapEx to do something that I don't commercially use. But what you do is if you use it, even now, the stores are coming to me and says, can you launch this with us, commercially? I said, no, but 90% of the time, this type of works will end up being helpful on commercially as well.
Right. You don't have a separate philanthropy. You have your personal philanthropy, tent.org, but you don't have a Chobani philanthropy.
No.
Because you're integrating the mission into the business.
Exactly.
But, there's a lot of backlash to that idea, right? I mean, think of all the anti-ESG backlash that's out there now. I know you've thought about taking the company public. You ultimately decided to pull back. How do you think about retaining the mission-driven nature of Chobani as you grow, maybe becoming a public company at some point? How do you do that in an era when there's a lot of pushback to that basic idea?
Raj, you and I, we talked about this earlier. If you keep impact in the center of what you do in your business, 99.9% of the time, it's good for your business. It make you faster, innovator, more profitable, you name it. Every study will show you that. But if you do it, what do you call it, half-ass?
You could say that here.
Is it like check the box type of things? You have no impact on your business, and you have no impact on the other side. And then the first thing get attacked is that. So in Chobani case, for example, if we try to do our operation any other way, if I run the company any other way, I will be a fraction of the success I have at Chobani today. So we don't know to operate any other ways. And there are a lot of companies like that. So my suggestion is if you are in that dimension, so good. If you're not, you really meaningfully have to make the changes in your organization. So you are not half that. You're really mean to. It's better to be this or this, nothing in between.
Right. You can be a pure business, but at least if you're going to do it, you got to be real.
Do it right. Yeah.
Listen, I want to ask you also about the other area where I think you're a real leader in this country, and in fact, in a moment, we're going to have my friend America Ferrera on stage, who's also a real leader on these issues.
Oh my God, Emmy is here. Oh, you guys have to get to know Emmy and all the other guests. Oh my God, I was just with her yesterday. We were in Mexico together the other day. She is one of my favorite people in the
Right,
world.
because you speak so eloquently about migration, right? I
He
mean,
didn't say I was coming before Emmy.
I know
Some heavy hitters here.
she's feeling the same way. You're a tough act to follow. But we are living in a moment when the narrative around migration is pretty toxic, right? You know what's happening in Springfield, Ohio, in this country, but this is global. This is all over the world. Migration is being used, as a scapegoat issue, and it's driving politics in a really nasty way around the world. How do you feel about this, given the leadership and your own personal life story?
It hurts. The part that I get reacted in 2016, I believe, when I started Chobani and then hired everybody back from the company that fired everybody. I got them all back. And then I hit a town called Utica, and they said there are a lot of people settled in Utica. They have a hard time finding jobs. They're refugees. So I went to refugee center in Utica, and I talked to this amazing woman who runs the place. And she said, yeah, these are legally settled refugees. They have right to work. The issues are they don't speak the language. They don't speak English. They don't have cars or driver license. And they don't have the training, the jobs that are around here. And then above that, there is the stigma, right? People don't want to touch. Yep. I said, well, we hire everybody. Let's get them. We get buses and cars. We can get translators in the factory. We can trade them in there. And then by the time in 2016, we had 30% of our employees were all refugees and immigrants from 16 different languages spoken. And thank you. And then politics started, and a lot of stuff being said. And I finally brought one of the news agency into my factory. Says, "What's the problem? We are all, we're all making yogurt, shoulder to shoulder, and providing to our families. These are all brothers and sisters." And you see, the locals and people from all over the world became like, family. Right? It's right in front of my own eyes. And when I went to UNHCR in Geneva, and I realized that there's not many companies that are involved, and I saw what happened to refugees right in front of my eyes when they get a job. Like when they didn't have a job, and then they get buses and cars, and then they get their own cars, and then they get their own houses, and then they became a proud member of the society, and then they start providing, and then made magic at Chobani, all that stuff. I said, what if I tell other companies to do the same, because it will do the magic in their companies. And then it will change the refugees' life. And then it will, create this beautiful family and society and move forward. And it was a long shot. In 2016, I launched 10 Partnership for Refugees. Today, we are over 450 companies worldwide. We are operating 12 countries, one of them being Mexico. That's why we signed MOU with Amy and IOM. In Mexico, we went there. I'll give you a quick example. We went to Mexico last year, and we made a study that there is 2 million job opening in Mexico. The company is having a hard time to fill it. 2 million. We asked all the refugees that they're passing through, 75% of them would say, I will stay in Mexico if I had a chance to work. 75. And all generosity of Mexican people, we ask all the Mexican consumers, it says, we will support companies who are hiring refugees. 80% of them said we will buy their goods and services if we know they hire and support refugees. Like, amazing. So we shared with these companies. We got 70 companies sign up. Incredible. And say publicly, and we made a huge, gatherings. And then the government started supporting, the Mexican government. So it came together. Today, and that's why Amy's organization is most amazing, through them we can reach out to the refugees so they can access to work. And same thing happened in UK, same thing happened in Germany. The point I'm trying to make is this. This topic is being used in politics so unfairly. It's hurtful, like really hurtful. The reality is companies, at least 400 of them, over 400 of them I know, we can meet above and beyond the politics. The reality is reality. All the economic studies, marketing studies, social studies tell where the refugees have an access to job, in there, within 3 years, economically positive, in there, innovation goes in the right direction, in there, businesses opens, in there, companies, flourish, and the society flourish. It's enormously win, 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 win. So the politics is the politics. I think the vast majority of the people, especially every place that we made the market, there's enormous amount of support. But the absence of that, Raj, absence of dealing migration and refugees, we will not be able to find solution to any other enormous topics that you care, your organization talks about it and writes about it, and everyone in this room talks about it. So it's essential, and business have an obligation to play in this.
Well, this is, as you know, a heavy week. There's a lot of tough news, a lot of bad headlines. But just imagine for a moment if there were more companies like Chobani and more CEOs like Hamdi Ulukaya. Please join me in thanking Hamdi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raj.